Hey guys, this is a short Franky Scouser trial podcast about me and my curiosity in conspiracies. So I hope you like it, and I hope you understand my accent. Early life. I was born in the late 1960s, brought up in a Roman Catholic family and a working class home in Toxteth. I will be honest, I was not particularly bright at school. I was always a daydreamer, and nothing really got my attention apart from sport or maybe history. And to this day, I have never found out what qualifications I got, if any. Right, the first time I knew something was not right came in the early 1980s. Where we lived, we was in the hub of Toxteth when the 1980s riots happened. I was a kid, so I never really understood why it started. I think it lasted a week or two, but I can remember the smoke and fire at night and seeing buildings being burnt. Also hearing the roar of the people fighting. It was pretty scary, and one incident always sticks in my head. It was a guy with a hatchet chopping down the street light that was directly opposite our first floor flat. I was convinced it was going to smash through our window. Thankfully, it never. But something like that always stays in my head. Obviously, as you get older, you find out the real reasons for the riots. Thatcher on her attack on the inner cities around the country. Also, police oppression to black and white people that lived in those areas around that time. And it opened my eyes up to the real world. The first thing that happened to me personally that was really strange came when I was 15. Before I go on, I want to make it perfectly clear I am a believer about the paranormal. For instance, ghosts, spirits, demons, etc. So I admit I could be biased, but I still cannot explain this event. Right, me and my mates were in a local park at night. It might have been 11 or even later in mid-November. It was cold and we were hanging about, but we heard something. Then we seen kids playing. It was dark. We all looked across the park and we all seen young children, ages between, I'm guessing here, 3 to 11, all dressed in white clothing, skipping and playing. We never seen an adult with them, which we found strange considering the time and month. They were there about 5 minutes, then skipped off into the dark until we could not see them. It really was an eerie feeling, so much so that I had to walk past the same area where those kids were playing, as it was a shortcut to my home. My mates were taking the mickey out of me, but I walked a long way home that night. I have no doubt all of us were scared that night, but being teenage boys, we didn't want to show it. I never really thought much more about it until I was telling the same story to an elderly neighbour about 10 years ago, who mentioned there was a school near the park that was bombed. So I tried to research the area and came across a local website called Hidden Liverpool. They were asking people from the city to write down any experience they had and anything that was out of the ordinary regarding paranormal. So I decided to write down on their website what we saw. The editor of the site got back to me a week later. He told me he researched the area to see if there was anything out of the ordinary. He found out that in World War II, there were 2 air raid shelters very, very close to the sighting. A German bomb hit either a school or a shelter, and many children in white robes died that night. So he published my account on his website. I have never seen anything like that again. It was just weird. Even now it's hard to believe. Which brings me on to my favourite subject, UFO conspiracies. I have always been fascinated with UFOs and aliens. Watched anything sci-fi related and read anything I could about the subject. This was way before the internet, so a lot of views were mainstream media friendly, but I still enjoyed them. I read anything about Roswell and Area 51, and around that time, the 1980s seemed to explode with UFO stories. Also, the Bob Lazar revelations drew a lot of attention. So I ended up getting a monthly publication about all of that stuff. I might have wrote about this on the conspiracy site. In fact, I'm pretty sure I have wrote about it. It was my first experience of seeing something in the sky that did not seem right. It happened about 8 or 9 years ago. I was in a room with the family. They were watching a TV show or soap. I think I might have been on my laptop. And out the corner of my eye, I noticed a light in the sky out of my window. It was a crystal clear night where you could see thousands of stars. I just kept looking at this light. It was moving slowly, vertically across the sky, back and forth. I decided to go out into my garden to get a better view. Now, I'm no expert, but I know it was not a plane or a helicopter. It was a classic UFO type of description, a glowing disc shape. I watched it for about 5 minutes, then I decided to get my mobile and use my camera to try to video it. To be honest, it was a waste of time. The cameras around that time were of poor quality, and I could not see anything worth recording. Anyway, the object was in the sky for around 20 minutes. Then it shot off like a rocket vertically. The only way I could describe it is when you see a thunder and lightning and you see the bolt. It was like a blue bolt that lasted a millisecond. Once you see something out of the ordinary, you'd always question yourself. It's human nature, I suppose. I did get the wife and kids to check it out. They all seen it, but they're not believers. They don't believe in that kind of stuff. I tried to check up locally if anyone else had seen anything. But it was a lot harder then, as social network sites were not really used then. Then I decided to put the video up on YouTube regardless, even with the poor quality, just in the hope someone had seen something. I got asked if it could have been a Chinese lantern, which is fair enough. But the speed it left, that would have been impossible. Could it have been a natural phenomenon? Maybe. Like I said, I am no expert. but I defo think we are not alone. Finally, my fascination with conspiracies. The first conspiracy was like most people. It was the JFK murder that really stood out. I watched every documentary of what happened in Dallas. That was the start for me. But like most people, I never really thought much about this kind of stuff because of the normal day-to-day routine, like bringing up a family and earning and living. Then 9/11 happened. And like most people, it was a day I will never forget. Seeing those images made me feel numb for days. Then you get caught up of the emotion of wanting justice, even revenge. Then a few days later, things were being reported that did not make sense. Then I started to question what was being told. Like I said, the internet was not about, or should I say, not many people had it then. Mainstream news was pumping out all of this propaganda. So it was a lot harder to get an unbiased opinion. When a passport of one of the terrorists is found in perfect condition, alarm bells should be ringing. I can honestly say that since 9/11, I see the world as a very different place. When I first got a laptop, things really opened my eyes to what's going on. You get alternative views or news that you would never normally see. Obviously, a lot of it is going to be disinfo. That is why I treat new reports of, say, anything alien or UFO stuff with skepticism, as it's loaded with lies. For me, I always try to find anything from the 60s, 70s or 80s, because reporting was a lot more freer then. And anyone who went public in those years were treated as a nut job. So for me, it must have been a tough decision to say anything out of the ordinary. That is why I tend to look for info from those eras. Which finally brings me onto the conspiracy site. Like most people, I found the football rumour site to see any info about Liverpool. Then I seen the conspiracy site. Great work by all the Eds. 1, 33, 7, even Ed 2. Which, by the way, I think is the best free-thinking site that I have come across. There are taboo subjects allowed that other sites would not allow. When I first joined the site, I only read other people's posts. Not sure why. Maybe I thought, who cares about my opinion? Then if a topic was mentioned that I loved, say for instance like UFO related stuff, I would post anonymous. I think I'd done that for a year. But I always stuck to subjects I was comfortable with. Then something happened. I watched videos, especially by Ed33, about subjects that normally would not interest me. Banking, fraud, chemtrails, monarchy, etc. All of them videos were all sort of connected, like David Icke says about joining the dots. Then I watched videos of the fraud of religion. And since I am a Roman Catholic, I felt let down, a fool if you will, that we are all fed lies as soon as we are old enough to go to school. I have even made it clear to my family that when I die, I don't want any type of service in church. In fact, today, I am reading a post about religion. It shows you how powerful the subject is and will continue to be in the future unless we all wake up. As a few of you might know, I am not a big fan of the monarchy. In fact, I don't think many people are in my city. It could be the Irish Celtic blood that runs through us, who knows. But to read some of the claims of the satanic child abuse and murder really opens your eyes. I'm not saying I believed it all at the time. I was always open-minded to the claims. Then the David Icke stuff came out about the whole establishment's fantasy with satanic rituals. Then it clicked. They are part of the same sick regime. 5 years ago, you would have been laughed at if a top politician would have been accused of murder. Not anymore. In the next year or two, some shocking things will be revealed. Which leads me on to the most mind-blowing video I have ever seen. Hitler, the greatest story ever told. I had seen it a few times on the site. I knew about history, I thought, plus it was 6 hours long, so I always tended to avoid it. Then one day I seen a comment on the site, so I took my laptop to bed. I was going to give it 30 minutes. 3 hours later, I was gobsmacked. The only reason I never watched all of it was that the missus was moaning to turn it off so she could sleep. Even when I turned it off, my brain was still buzzing with what I had just watched. I watched the final 3 hours and felt many emotions. I felt cheated, angry and guilty. As both of my granddads fought in the war and they were on the beaches of Dunkirk. And here's their grandson feeling sympathy towards Germany. That video really threw me. I will not mention it anymore as I do not want to spoil it in case anyone else wants to see it. Also, I want to mention that I have learned a hell of a lot from the regulars from the site, with posts about many things I have no clue about. I always try to watch a video that someone sends a link of. Guys like Zari, Mort, Melbourne, Kim. There are plenty of other names I've just forgot, so I apologise, guys. Even though I might not agree with everyone, I do respect their point of view. And finally, a big shout out to all the heads for their time and hard work on the site. This has been a short timeline of my life and thoughts. Cheers for listening, Franky.